All right. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs, professionals, and straight up top badasses out there dominating their space. And today, guys, got another amazing rock star guest here on the podcast with us. So our guest, they just give you guys a little bit of a background. He's the marketing director for Treadstone Mortgage, which is one of the nation's top boutique lenders. Now, his focus within the company is focusing on helping real estate professionals utilize tech to grow their business. So even though he works in the mortgage industry at a mortgage company, I mean, his world is really helping those of us in the real estate industry, us real estate professionals, go out there and dominate our real estate businesses. I'm also the author of TAG, the Tangible Action Guide for Real Estate Marketing, which is a #1 Amazon release. Also a fellow podcaster. That's how we met, through being on each other's podcasts. So really stoked and honored to have Matt Muscat to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much for having me today. I'm pumped.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun, man. We were jamming just the other day on your podcast, and I was like, dude, I got to get you back. I got to get you on mine, man.
I know it's all about like crossing audiences, crossing ideas. I mean, I love the fact that like you're in one area of the country, I'm in another, but it's fascinating that some of the same fundamentals of real estate sales marketing apply no matter where you are, but with a little bit of a different flavor. So I was pumped to learn from you, and now I'm pumped to share some ideas from up here in the slightly colder Midwest.
Yeah, well, it just so happens, man, you're located where my old stomping grounds, man. Yeah, it's such a small world, dude. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I have a friend there now, because I know come December I'll need a place to crash in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing summers are our winters here, because it's like 115 right now here. You know, right? It's just crazy hot. So it's like it's a reverse here in Arizona, man.
I feel you.
All right, dude. So I know we got a bunch we want to jump in today. You know,
Yeah.
We're talking about, how to sell in this fear-based market, talking about how to, really creating unique selling propositions and a lot of other things that we kind of talked about before we hit the record button here. But before we get into that, I'm just always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. So like, what led you to what you're doing today? What did you do before this position? And, what was that journey?
Absolutely. So interesting story. So I went to school, went to Michigan State, go green. And I was studying journalism. It was a scholarship that I got in high school. And towards the end of undergrad, my professor got laid off, right? Like, she was a journalist and she didn't have a job. And I was like, oh, this isn't good. Like, she has 20 years of experience and she no longer has a job. So I switched my major and I got into digital marketing and business. And thankfully, like, it was at the time Facebook had just like exploded on college campuses. Twitter was about to come out. It was just a really fun time. So I started learning about internet marketing, websites, SEO. And then of course, graduation happened. And out of like 200 people in my graduating class, I think like 4 had a job lined up. It was, 2009. Market was not great. Market was different than it was today, but just weird, right? The recession. So I applied at like 100 different companies and I got one call. And that one call was from a mortgage company. And I remember calling my mom and telling her I got like a job offer for $30,000 a year to work at a mortgage company. And my mother was like, didn't that industry just like single-handedly bankrupt the world economy and screw everybody over? And I'm like, yeah, but they're the only ones that are willing to pay me anything. So I'm going to go there. And initially I got called to basically help with marketing, get some leads in, SEO, social media. And it worked. So after a couple of months, I came to my boss and I said, like, what else? Like, I need more to fill my hours up. And he said, well, there are these people called Realtors. And if you can get them to like us, we get business. And I was like, okay, how do I get them to like us? I have no experience. And he said, well, you've been getting us leads doing internet marketing. Why don't you teach Realtors how to do the same thing? If they get a lead, I bet you they'd send it back to us. And I said, okay, cool. So after that, I said, all I need to do is call up 20, 30, 40 Realtors a week, tell them how to do these marketing things, help them with it, show them how to do it, do some presentations, and then they will like us, meet with our salespeople, and send us business. And that worked. So fast forward 10 years, I've probably done 3,700 realtor meetings. And I've learned about what has worked, what hasn't worked, where money is spent wisely, where money is wasted. And it's been a really, really fun journey.
Yeah. And what a cool position, because you get a lead with giving value, and hopefully it's reciprocated, where you're helping them impact their business and they're funneling you back business. But, I don't know too many realtors that are going to be like, no, dude, get bent. Like, yeah, you're going to teach me cool shit that helps me grow my business. Let's have a conversation.
Well, for us, the really fun part of this has been, typically I joke to my salespeople, right? Like I tell my lenders all the time, like, call realtors, blah, blah, blah. But, realtors are getting hit up for business from lenders all the time. And oftentimes I joke that like realtors are like the pretty girl in school and lenders are like the annoying dudes that are just trying to get with them all the time. But if you are a lender and you have something valuable to offer, you're holding their paycheck in their hand, all of a sudden it changes up. So when we're offering this extra service, this marketing, we're not doing the marketing for them. We're teaching a man to fish. It's just attraction marketing. And it gets people to call us rather than us having to cold call them. So it's just been a fun job. My wife doesn't actually believe that I have a real job. She thinks I just do like lunches, happy hours, and golf and shit. But no, like this is real. It pays the bills, which is kind of fun. So
Yeah, no, it's epic, dude. So I'm curious with, because then this started in 2009. So then what, 2010 roughly?
2010, I started here and been here ever since.
Yeah. Okay. So then what have you seen? What are some of the biggest shifts and changes that you've seen, over the years?
Yeah. Well, I could tell you that
now.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you that like, if I look back at my notes from my meetings that I was having in 10 and 11, every realtor would come to me with the same problem. They would say, Matt, I need you to help me market. I need to get buyers. It wasn't listings. They all needed buyers. We'll look at the market that we're in now, right? It's been a complete flip. I mean, builders are getting out of the industry. Contractors are getting out of the industry. There's less homes for sale now than ever. I mean, back then there might be 4,000, 5,000 homes in the market where we live. Now there's maybe 600 homes on the market at a time. And every single person is competing at a really, really high level to get those homes. So now agents are coming to me saying, how can we get more listings? How can we convince people that are at a 3% rate to sell their home and move to a new home that's probably 50% more expensive and triple the interest rate? And that's the challenge that we're trying to overcome now, is generating inventory, but also creating our own demand a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's unpack that, dude. So what do you mean by creating own demand?
Yeah. So when it comes to marketing and when it comes to like the business that most of us get, I think we've been really conditioned to, send out these like generic calls for help, right? Like, we're a realtor, we're a lender, we're in sales. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're selling. You're calling people and saying like, hey, I just wanted to remind you that I'm a realtor. If you ever need anything, I'm here to help you. For me, that's not useful. Like, you're not providing very much value by just simply calling people to remind them that you're a realtor, right? Like, your relationship should be deep enough with your people that they know you're a realtor and they know what kind of real estate you practice it, where you practice it, and how they could help you and how they could refer you. When I say you need to create your own demand, this is what I feel that very few people are doing. Look at the market, look at the homes that are on the market, and come up with a pitch for an individual house and structure that to an individual person in your database on why they should buy that house. It does not even need to be to people that are looking for real estate, right? Like, if in your database, Josh, you probably have, I don't know, 10% of your database who have some serious money, right? Like, these are people that have money. They could be investors. They just haven't bought an investment property yet. If you find a property, you can put together a little pro forma on it, and you can then email, call, text the people that you know have money. It's like, hey, I know you're not looking, but I know that you're always looking for a good investment, a good deal. I put this together for you. Check it out. Let me know what you think. It's a great way to diversify. You can, in essence, put the idea into someone's head that they could become an investor by really putting all the numbers together and getting them to realize that. Or take it to another place. You go on Facebook today, or Instagram, or Thread, the new thing that came out yesterday that apparently had 30 million downloads. And you see that one of your clients, one of your people that already knows, likes, and trusts you, they have a son or a daughter that's graduating high school, moving to college. And you say, hey, super random, I saw you posted online, your kid's going to Arizona State. I actually just saw a property get listed about 5 blocks from campus. You could buy that for them. They could rent it out for their 3 friends and it would completely cover your mortgage. You're pitching them the idea that their kids could live for free and it would be an investment for them. But you came up with that pitch based on something you knew about them and based on a specific property that's on the market. I mean, there's a million ways that this could go, but I want agents to create their own pitch because it really puts them in control of their paycheck. If you're just calling people to remind them that you're a realtor, again, that's not super valuable. Give them something tangible to grab onto. Even if it just reminds them that you're an agent in a subtle way and that you know the market and that you're updated on it daily, that's a benefit in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it, man. So then When it comes to something that you said before we got into creating your own demand, you mentioned, okay, like on the listing side, getting more listings and having that conversation where, hey, I'm locked in at this 3% rate.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of agents reach out to you to solve that problem. Have you had any success at solving that problem?
Absolutely. Now, I mean, the elephant in the room is money's money, right? Like people need to be able to afford their house payment. But when we do surveys of the reasons that people are moving, I can tell you what the answer is not. And the answer 100% of the time is not interest rate. People are not choosing to move because an interest rate is high or low, right? That might be like the second, third, or fourth factor that pushes them over the decision-making edge. But what it's the best way to diffuse the situation is you as the agent or you as the salesperson, the moment you start talking to a client, ask them, what is the single most important thing to you about your upcoming move? I guarantee the answer will not be interest rate. In the last 500 we've had as a mortgage company, the answer has not been interest rate. They say they're moving to get into a new school district to be closer to family, more space, less space. I got a new job, etc. Ask them in their own words to answer that question, write their answer down, and then reinforce their answer to them throughout the process, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, because then they're not going to come to you with rate being a problem because you've already solved the problem for them. You've already told them and reminded them in their own words of what they were looking for and what was important to them. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to put educational material out there about the way that interest rates and mortgages work, right? So mathematically, do you believe in the laws of math, Josh?
For sure.
Me too, right? Like I'm terrible at math. That's why I work in the mortgage industry. But this is one I like to give to clients because it's kind of funny, right? This one's kind of jokey, but it makes sense. So interest rates are numbers, and there's only 3 possible things that they can do. They can go up, they can go down, or they can stay exactly the same. We know that because that's what physics teaches us, right? So let's just break that down. If you bought today and interest rates went up, you won. You made a good gamble and you won. I bought a year ago, interest rates are up now, so I'm happy. Number 2, interest rates go down. If you buy today and interest rates go down, competition in the market is going to double or triple because now all of a sudden even more people can afford that same house and are going to be competing for it. So that's going to push prices up. And if that happens, you will have locked in a great price on a home, and then you'll be able to refinance out and take advantage of that lower rate. So you still win if rates go down. Now, if rates stay exactly the same, then it's kind of like a who cares scenario. You locked in a price, you got the house that you wanted, your payment stays the same. You're not buying an adjustable rate mortgage. Hopefully, we don't advise a lot of those. So it's a win. So again, there's only 3 options, and those are the 3 outcomes. If you educate people on those ahead of time, they kind of go, oh, you're right. And of course, on the refinance side, your lender is going to be banging down your door to get you to refinance because that is the paycheck that they've been chasing for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes from a marketing perspective, I mean, we have so many amazing platforms that are free today to go out there and push out this message. And, I look at just like you go out there and watch the mainstream media, and it's like, all it is negativity. Oh, it's the worst, worst time to go out there and buy. Mortgage rates, nobody can, so, puts in all these people's mind all this fear, so then to overcome that, putting out educational based content with your leads or even non-leads that you just have connections with in social media or new connections you have in social media, how are you guys leveraging social media to go out there and get these messages out?
On our social media, the big thing is that, like, to overcome all the negative media nationally, we really try to take a super local approach, right? Because we specifically want to dispel the myths that are out there nationally by talking about what's happening in the local market. So I'm finding statistics that show the trend of, like, this is what happened to people that waited 3 years ago in our specific market. This is where prices were. This is where mortgage prices were. Even if you buy today, due to where prices were and are now, you're still saving money, or still saving money versus renting. The great thing about numbers is that you can really make them say what you need to. So we like to show a lot of rent versus buying comparisons, and we like to show a lot of, like, wealth comparisons, showing the amount of equity that you would have had if you had bought sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know, before we hit the record button. Something that you brought up that really caught my attention was, how to sell in a fear-based market. I mean, is that essentially what you're alluding to, or what are
Yes.
other things that you recommend? Because there is
Yeah.
so much fear out there, man. Is the market going to crash? Is it, like who knows what's going to happen? But there is a lot of fear.
So I think, in times where there's fear in every area of the market, right? Like is the stock market going to crash? Is the housing market going to crash? Are car prices crashing, going up? Who knows? People really do want one local expert they can trust, who they can go to, who can give them a little positivity. I mean, positivity is contagious. Human beings are triggered to respond more to smiles than frowns, right? So little babies, they see you smile, they smile back. If you can convey positivity that's realistic and truthful on a consistent basis, people will choose to go to you. Now, part of that is they need to know that you know what you're talking about. And I think a lot of times that's hard for agents because it's a confidence thing. And you and I talked about this on my show the other day, right? Like the number one thing most salespeople are lacking is confidence. And without confidence, it's hard to sell that knowledge, right? Like if you're that realtor out there that believes that today is a terrible time to buy, it's really hard to convince a client otherwise. But if you look at the market and you look at the success stories of people you've helped in the past year or two and how their lives have changed, share those stories confidently with other people on social media, over the phone, over email. Those stories of people in your actual local market who you, or maybe if you're new, who people at your office have helped, those are the things that are going to convince people to take that next step and buy with you or sell with you.
Yeah. It always blows my mind because, I hear people say comments of, well, nobody's buying right now. Well, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, our market might be down, 30 some percent, close to 40% transaction volume, but there's still like 5,000 to 6,000 transactions taking place in my market every single month. So it might be a little bit lesser, but there's still an insane amount of people out there transacting. So, a lot
at
of
the end
it's
of the day,
in
like
people's minds.
people are drawn to being winners rather than losers, right? So when you share the story of those who won and you share how they won and how you helped them win, it's that much more powerful. When you're marketing, it's really important to tell the story of how you helped someone win. Like what was the beginning? What was the challenge? How did you overcome the challenge? And what did the finish line look like? If you can tell success stories based on truth to your audience, that's what's going to drive people. Like I'll give you an example because I want people to think about the success stories they've had recently. We had a young woman. She was a new 23-year-old nurse at one of the local hospitals. She called one of our loan officers. She was renting a house with her three best friends who were all nurses at her hospital. They were paying like $3,000 a month collectively, so $1,000 a month each to rent this property out near downtown. And she applied for a mortgage. She qualified. She bought the house next door to the one she was renting. Her total mortgage payment was like $1,900 a month. And she rented the other bedrooms back to the same girls she was renting with before. So now, instead of spending $1,000 a month, she's building equity and making another $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Now, after taxes, it's maybe a little bit less. But we increased her income by over $1,500 a month. And she put 3.5% down. So it wasn't a huge amount of debt to put down. That success story is something that we want to share with every single prospective buyer that we have, because we want them to know that this is not a crazy case. This is not a millionaire buying yet another investment property. This is a 23-year-old young professional who is now in an amazing spot.
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. So then, sharing, when I hear you say, sharing that message, okay, well, you can share that message when you're talking with leads on the phone, but then you've got all these, again, brilliant social media platforms that you're an expert in, to go out there and share those stories. So what are effective ways to go out there and share those types of stories? Because I mean, what do most realtors do? Oh, sold in 2 days above list. It's like this braggy, douchey post that people get turned off by.
Let's avoid as an industry, let's avoid the posts that make it seem like our jobs are easy and that it's just the market doing all the work, right? Like if you're sharing the success and how quickly and easy it was and how much money you made, you have to share the struggle that you overcame. I always go back to that. So I think Instagram Reels can be a really great way to do that. I always recommend agents either start with long form writing or with video, right? Like if video is easy for you and you can just talk, start with a video because then you can transcribe that video and turn that into text. Likewise, If video is not your thing, start with long form text, because then you can take out individual sections, which can then become later shorter social media posts. But I think right now, to really show some of those more heartfelt stories, I think Instagram Reels can be fantastic. I think Instagram really connects better to your existing audience. TikTok's good too, but TikTok is more of that national audience. So if you're more of a national program, or you have more, if you're doing something that has more of a national reach, TikTok's better. But I think, and it has better editing tools. But if you're going for more of your local market, if you're a normal realtor, normal salesperson, I think Instagram is really where that's at.
So can we like just kind of have you do a breakdown of these different platforms and kind of best practices? Because man, so when I first started getting into, I mean, it was about the same time you did, right? Like, I mean, just meaning when Facebook, I've been on since about 2009, and for a lot of years it was simple because there was just posts. Now you got posts, you got stories, you got reels, and then it's, Instagram, maybe the algorithms are hitting on different things, and maybe Facebook's versus TikToks. And, it's almost just become so convoluted and so overwhelming, and confusing. A lot of people are like, dude, I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to use these different platforms. So maybe just break down, your top ones, and then, different best practices.
So I'd say that in terms of social media and like what a realtor should be using, I always say like pick one and get really good on it, right? So I think pretty much all of us have a Facebook. You kind of have to have a Facebook to function in society these days, right?
Yep.
So if your average clientele is like 45 or over, Facebook's a great place to start. Your personal page is really where it's at. So there's business pages and there's personal pages. Now on Facebook, there's a big difference. On Instagram, there's less of a difference. So I would start on Facebook, start with your personal page. And the biggest thing I would do, number one, is make sure that your profile photo is clearly your headshot. It's clearly you. It's not like 3 dogs in the background. It's not you with shades on that make you look sexy. It's not you with like, you and your spouse with a huge background of the beach. It needs to be clearly you. And especially if you're a person who changed their last name in the last 10 years, it's very important that it's just you so that people recognize you when they might not recognize your last name. Second is your job title. It pisses me off, and it makes no sense to me when I see real estate agents with job titles that don't say what they do. If your goal is to make sales to the average public, your job title needs to make it incredibly clear exactly what you do. So I don't need it to say like CEO of the XYZ team at XYZ brokerage, right? Like no one knows what that means. You're not a CEO. You are a realtor. You sell houses. So I want your job title to be realtor or real estate agent. And then in your little tagline, I need it to say, I help people buy, sell, and invest in real estate in Arizona, in the tri-state area, in whatever, in Michigan and Florida, whatever that is. You need to make it clear to people. Next one is going to be, you need to make sure that your posts are public. So on Facebook, you can go, and on Instagram, you can go public, private, friends only, and there's a host of options in between. The biggest mistake I see is people are like, hey, I'm doing Facebook, I'm making all these great posts, but I'm not getting any interaction. And I'm like, yeah, duh, your posts are private or friends only. Like you're taking away all of the viral potential of social media by only reaching the same 10 people every post. So that's like the basics. Like if you do that, you have the chance to be successful. The next part is where everyone's really missing out. And that's most people are talking, but they're not listening and engaging. Even if you don't intend to post on social media ever, you can still make it work for you. I'll give you an example. My boss did $150 million in sales last year. He's my mentor. He's taught me everything. I don't know that he's ever logged on to Facebook, and that's okay. But he uses Facebook and he's closed millions of dollars in business off of it. Here's what he does. He has his assistant log into his Facebook twice a week and give him an email that says, this is what your friends are doing. John just got a dog. Tammy just had a baby. Your other buddy's kid just graduated high school. And then he picks up the phone and he calls those people. So I call that data mining. Like, right, if you do not feel comfortable posting on social and you just want to use it for data mining, I'm great with that. I think it is a huge advantage. You can update your CRM with it. You can make personal calls with it. All of our brokers are telling us, make more phone calls, call your past clients, but you don't do it because you don't know what to say. Facebook and social media, they tell you what you should be saying to your past clients. So that would be one. That's using it for listening. Second one, though, is if you are not engaging with the things that your friends are posting, they are probably not engaging with the things you're posting. So the way to fix that is to create a rule for yourself that you are going to go through your friends list and message every person who's done a post in the last year at least 2 or 3 times a year, right? Like if I go to your profile and you haven't logged on to Facebook in 2 years, I'm not going to waste my time with you. I'm probably just going to delete you actually. But if I go to yours and you've been active, I'm going to message you. Hey, Josh, how's it going? Like, I haven't talked to you since we did that podcast last week. What's new? You're probably going to respond to me. Or I could take it one step better. I could say, hey, Josh, saw that you just took your 10-year-old to the new Spider-Man movie. How was it? I know you're going to respond because you took the time out of your day in the first place to tell the world that you went to see the new Spider-Man movie. So something about you wanted to talk about it. So when I message you about that topic, I know I'll get a response. Now, I technically don't care what you say back, because now that I've messaged you and you've responded, we've had two-way communication. And now Facebook's algorithm, or Instagram, it works the same way, knows it's a little ping that we're interested in each other again. And they are going to show you my status is higher up in the algorithm, and me, your status is higher up in the algorithm. So we haven't talked in a year. You're not seeing my posts. I message you, you message back. I post about real estate or a new listing tomorrow. Now you're going to see it. I am guaranteeing my chances of getting my post seen. This is where most people are messing up when it comes to social, because they're not being social and they're losing out on that algorithm engagement. And the same thing it holds true for Instagram.
Yeah, and one of those a year, because you mentioned 2 a year, could just be the happy birthday. You know, we get the list every day.
So the happy birthday one is a super complicated one. So it could be happy birthday, but keep in mind that the algorithm takes into consideration how many other messages that person's getting, right? So if you're a user and you get 200 messages on Facebook a year and 190 of them are all on your birthday, my message to you on your birthday doesn't count for as much. So when you get that birthday list, you can make a note to send a message a couple of days later, you could send it earlier, or you could do something else with it. But the message on someone's birthday that just says happy birthday doesn't count for as much. If you really want it to do better, it needs to be more of a long form message that maybe starts with happy birthday, but then goes into something else. So it for sure gets a response.
Yep, love that. No, it's good to know, dude. So then, I was looking when it comes to social media. You're creating content, putting content out there, and you're engaging in that content, but then also taking the time to engage in other people's content.
Yes.
That you're connected with. Because it's like, we're in the era where people, the number one deepest desire of all human beings is the feeling of significance. And we're just in a world where likes and comments make people feel significant. Plus, as you said, I have always had that rule of, dude, if I'm not seeing their stuff, they're not seeing my stuff. So I need to be intentional about, we'll go through like our A's this day or B's this day, liking and commenting, but then that law of reciprocity, when they're seeing that, they feel more obliged to go out there and like and comment, engage on your stuff. And when I say this stuff, I'm just speaking from I use the hell out of it, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert, with this stuff like you are. So, definitely push back or what have you found the power of that, of making sure that you're also engaging?
What you just said is perfect, right? Like, it doesn't even matter what the technology is behind it, right? Because this all goes back to like basic human nature and psychology. So when we're Facebook friends, let's start at the beginning. I meet you at a party and I friend you. If that's the beginning of the relationship and we never talk again, it's going to go dead really quickly, right? Not because of the algorithm, although that's down the road, but because you and I haven't created like a social media safe zone. Like, we've basically said like, hey, I'm going to add you, you're going to accept me, I'm going to creep on you and stalk you in the background, and I'm going to know everything you're doing, but we're not going to talk and be real friends. Versus the moment we start interacting and one of us reaches out and there's a message back and forth, there's some comment, there's some engagement, that's opening up the safe zone. That's telling you, Joshua, that I'm comfortable with engaging with you on this platform. And I think this is especially important to do if it's like cross-gender relationships, right? Like, a lot of times, like, a guy will add a girl, you want to make it clear that you're not hitting on them, but on the same token, you want to make it clear that like you're down to have a conversation. You're down to chat and have an intelligent conversation and engage both ways. Like, I think a lot of people realize like when your realtor adds you, they're not adding you to hit on you. I think it's pretty clear, like they're adding you to stay in touch. But if you never start that conversation or that engagement, you lose it. And then a year later, if you randomly start messaging them, then it can come off as possibly weird. So highly recommend you whenever you add a new friend or accept a new friend, you start that engagement off at the beginning of the relationship.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then, when you're training realtors on this, I mean, like if we were to break it down for a day's schedule, I mean, is this important to just kind of make it part of your daily ritual, like 30 minutes a day to get in there and like and comment on people's content?
So I would always tell people, if you're looking for one strategy, it should be sending out 15 messages a day. That's like the quickest way to success, because it's just like having a conversation. If you have 15 pieces of communication per day, multiply that by 5 days. That's a lot. What are the chances that 2 of those people are going to be buying, selling, or investing in real estate in the next 30 days? It's high. What are the chances that 2 of those people are going to be at work the next day and have a friend say, oh yeah, I'm going to be buying a house soon. And then you're top of mind to get that referral. If you organize your friends list A to Z or in some organized fashion and send out 15 messages a day about whatever they've been talking about recently, start a conversation. That's the way to go. You can even use those to simply fill up your calendar for coffees, lunches, and happy hours the following week. There's many ways to do it. Likes and comments are good. But I think a lot of times most people, if I assign them that, they get lost in the ridiculousness of social media, right? Like they're going to see what Kim Kardashian said. They're going to see the political BS that's on there, and they're going to get unfocused from the task at hand. So stick to Messenger, and it cuts away a lot of the clutter that social media is, and it really gets you having X amount of conversations, and you can be very strategic about it. You can do 15 messages pretty much no problem in half an hour without an issue.
Yeah. And just sticking to what you said earlier with the recommended messages, like personalizing it based on what's in their feed. Correct. But not making it like, I'm not just going, hey Matt, just want to check and see how you're doing, how the family's doing. Hey, if you know anybody who wants to buy or sell, hit me up. Like,
I mean, you could do that if you wanted me to never call you again.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'll tell you kind of a funny story. 4 or 5 years ago, I was at one of the world's largest real estate brokerages. They hold a training class that they charge their agents a fortune to go to. I'm not going to out anyone, but that's the premise of it. And there was probably like a 65-year-old trainer, and he passed out like a script. It was like a 4-paragraph long script. And he told everyone to like message this to all of their friends on social media. And it took all of the respect and self-control I had not to burst out of my seat and tell people not to do it. Because number one, if you go to send out like a copy and pasted message to 30 people on Facebook, Facebook will literally shut down your account for the day. Yep. They will lock your account because they think you're being spammy, which you are. Number 2, if you send me a 4-paragraph unsolicited salesy message on social media about you, it's like you're trying to sell me some middle-level marketing pyramid scheme. Like, why not just try to sell me some weight loss pills and a wrap that will make me skinny? It doesn't come off as genuine, right? Zillow, the internet, there's plenty of services that you can sell your house online. If that's the style of marketing you're using, how could you possibly compete with the internet? If you're offering personal service, you can go deep and look at what people are really posting about on social media and how they want to be engaged with, then that puts you in the category of realtors who are worth 36%.
Yep. Love it. So then now when it comes to posting yourself, because and I know the language gets convoluted. Yeah. Now you got posts, you got reels, you got stories, but as far as like content posting, what are best practices there? Because I when I'm having conversations with realtors, dude, it's like they understand the power of it, but they don't typically take action on it because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to post about.
Yeah. So what to post is the hardest thing. And there's actually a pretty decent book online. It's for realtors. It's called What to Post. It came out a couple of years ago. But what I always recommend doing is come up with 5 categories that are kind of like evergreen categories that you could always post about. Like if I were to say like, hey Josh, what was your workout today? Like it's a slightly different workout every day, but like today it was a little bit different than yesterday. Workout for you, because I know you're into it, could be an evergreen category where once a week you're going to post something workout related. Now that doesn't sound like real estate, and that's okay, because your clients need to see that you're a more well-rounded human being, and you are going to attract a different type of person with posts about your interests than you are about posts about real estate. Like not all real estate's that exciting, right? Like unless you're selling $1 million properties or teeny tiny shacks that are ugly. It's not all that exciting. So come up with 5 evergreen categories. 1 or 2 of them can be about your interests. 1 or 2 of them could be about your community, which is always an easy one. 1 of them could be about real estate, closings, cool things you saw in houses, success stories of your clients, etc. And then finally, like your family is always an easy one. If you came up with those 5 categories, Monday is this, Tuesday is this category, Thursday is this category, all you have to do is you could do them all at the same time. On Sunday, you come up with your 5 category posts for the week, or every day you can go in for 5 minutes and think, what am I going to post? Finally, a lot of people will use tools like Google Trends to figure out what are people talking about on the internet right now, and how can I relate this to what I do? That can be a really great way to do things. I mean, you can literally look at TikTok trends, Instagram trends, or Google trends to see what the internet's talking about and think, how can I relate this to me? Or where can I jump in here?
Yep. Love it. So then, so then when it comes to, and we'll speak to, I guess, Facebook and Instagram, not that these other platforms can't be effective, but those kind of seem to be the juggernaut for real estate.
Yes.
But both kind of have a lot of the similar, again, post stories, reels. How do you mix that up? How do you, like what are like for somebody that's just jumping in this game, they're like, well, shit, what do I do with stories? How do I use stories? What makes best for reels? What makes best for posts? How frequently should I be doing them?
So on Facebook, I think, a normal status with words and maybe an image, they're fantastic. Not a ton of people from what I can see are using stories on Facebook. Now, in different areas of the country, in different age groups, that might not be correct. But just from my personal successes, that's what I can see. Instagram, however, I like to use a variety. So number 1, if you're not into videos and you're terrible on video, reels are probably not for you. But if you'd like to give it a try, if you keep your reels very short, anyone can do a good job with them. So a reel is basically like a post that stays in your feed. That's a video. A post could also be an image, but that type of post would not be a reel. Your post could be a carousel where it's 5 or 6 different images, and that stays on your feed also. Your stories are going to be more for content that is going to expire in 24 hours. So number 1, if it's controversial in any way, shape, or form, or if it's not designed well, it's not on brand, it's not super well thought out, stories are great because they disappear in 24 hours anyways, right? What I love about stories, though, and the real powerful piece of them, is that when someone responds to your story or you respond to theirs, that response comes through as a direct message. And a direct message, we just talked about Messenger, that helps the algorithm show your posts to everyone else more frequently. So your number 1 thing you can do is to post lots of story content that will get you responses, because then you don't even have to outbound message people. You're attracting them to message you. That's one of the biggest wins that you can possibly post. I mean, if I was trying to, like, if I was going after a new client and I was friends with them on social media, I would post bait stories that I knew that they would want to respond to just to get them to message me, and then pivot that into a meeting or a phone call or something like that, which I have done, by the way, and it works.
Yeah. With and we haven't figured out a way to do this with Facebook stories yet, but with Instagram stories, like one of my agents does a Thirsty Thursdays trivia. So she pre-creates them, but it looks like she's got a cocktail in her hand, drinking, whatever. But each one is just a different real estate related question. But then it's a, ABC answer. And then she can see who's answering what based on how they're answering. But like to your point, like even if you ask, hey, are you living in your dream home? Could you see yourself, like, what do you think of this kitchen? Could you see yourself, would you love to have this kitchen is your dream, whatever, because then, bam, you're getting that, you see that engagement every single one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the other cool thing about posts and reels is that you can share them to your stories afterwards. So you can kind of like, it's not mutually exclusive. Like a story can't then become a post, but if you make a post or a reel, you can literally, after it's posted, click share to stories and then get even more views on those. So that can be a really fun option as well.
Yeah. So then, I've heard different methodology on this, but like you were talking about those categories, right? Kind of those buckets. where, you got your 5 different things. Maybe one's real estate, the other 4, hobbies, interests, family,
Yeah.
that's non-real estate related. I've heard people talk about like an 80-20 principle of, 80% non-business, 20% business. In my team, we follow a 4-to-1 principle, meaning of 4 content posts, only one of those is business, the other 3 are not. Do you kind of have any best practices? I know there's no perfect, but like, do you have any best practices?
I mean, the biggest thing is going to be to vary it up, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's important. You're going to attract, even with the algorithm, you're going to attract different people to respond to different types of posts. So there are people who I'm close with, who I've been friends with on social media for 10 years, who have never once messaged me or engaged with one of my real estate posts. Now, the reason, or marketing posts, and the reason for that might not be that they don't care. It might just be that they don't know what to say, or that the algorithm isn't showing it to them. So I try to really vary up the types of posts that I'm doing to ensure that like I can increase the chances of someone seeing everything. So like I'll post about wine, I'll post about restaurants, and I'll post about my community. Though that alone is a huge percentage. When I know I'm doing a big marketing push and I notice that most of my posts have been maybe too masculine, I'll start to post more about my family. And then that gets some of the ladies messaging me more. So it's been really helpful to ensure that I'm reaching a varied audience.
Okay. Yep.
But I totally agree. Like, more than 10 to 20% real estate specific is too much in most scenarios. Now, if you want to post more real estate specific stories, that can be more okay. Like if you have a great real estate post and you're like, I already posted real estate yesterday, post that to stories because it goes away quick. And people's attention span, if they want to ignore it, they can swipe quickly.
Yep. Yeah, love it. So then when it comes to like, what are expectations people should have, when it comes to leveraging this organic posting style, content creation style, to lead to business, because we've all heard the famous story in Think and Grow Rich of stopping 3 feet short of gold.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, oh, dude, I've been posting every day for 30 days and nothing's come to business of this. And then they just stop, like what kind of consistency does this take before people can expect to see any type of a ROI on this?
So I think number one, you have to set micro goals before you set like the outcome you really want, which might be getting a closing, right? If you set micro goals and you track the activity rather than the outcome, I think that's your first step. So if you say, hey, for 1 straight month, I'm going to do 15 messages per day to unique people. And then you say, my first goal that I want to hit is I want to get 5 coffee or happy hours set up every week based on these messages. And number 2, I want to convert 15 of these messages into the point in which I can subtly mention real estate, or I can bring the conversation around to real estate. Now, the way to do that is actually pretty easy in the English language. So I'm going to message you about whatever movie you just took your kids to see. And at some point in the conversation, after we talk about the initial topic, what do you think the open-ended question that one of us would ask each other would be? What's an open-ended question that's in almost every conversation in the English language?
Just, how are you doing?
How are you doing? How's it going? What's new? How's work? How's the family? One of those questions gets asked in almost every social interaction any of us have.
Yeah.
Except for old people. They just talk about the weather. That's a bad joke, but it's true. So what the goal is after we start the conversation on whatever you've been posting about, when you eventually ask me how I'm doing or what's new, I'm going to start subtly guiding that conversation towards real estate so that I can stay top of mind, because that's really where the business is at for me. So you ask me, how's it going? And I'll say, hey, Josh, it's great. Like had a couple showings today and got an offer accepted for a client. So life is good.
Yeah.
I'm subtly reminding you that I'm in real estate, the market's hot, and I'm having success for my customers in a non-braggy way. If I make it a micro goal to do that in 2/3 of the messages I'm sending out, and then my other goal is to get meetings, like I know I'm going to be successful. Give it a month, and if you track those 2 things, you will see good results.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's almost like when I'm following my past clients. Like I make it about them. I'm checking in. Hey, how are you doing? How's the family? Like a lot of reciprocity. They're going to ask about me, and then I can insert about the real estate business and how it's going great and whatever. But I don't need to be the one to initiate it, because they're going to If I'm just focused on them, asking about them, it comes full circle in those conversations.
Absolutely. And it's a numbers game at the end of the day. It's genuinely caring, and two, making sure you have the right amount of activities going into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then have you found anything like, ask and you shall receive, like, okay, if we're not putting any type of call to actions in the real estate related stuff, I mean, have you found anything that's important there, or as long as you're just planting that seed that I'm in real estate and developing those connections, you're just finding people reaching out?
So it's tough. I think in real life, when I have actual meetings, I do always like to ask something and tell them exactly like what I'd like for them to do. On social media, like if your goal is to get the meeting, I don't always I always try to have like one goal for every social media conversation. So on social, my goal is usually just to get the meeting, unless they give me an in that they know someone that's buying or selling, or they just got a new job or something, and I see an in. Usually I'm going to make that hard ask when we're in person or over the phone. So a way to maybe add a little bit more success to your social media is when you're in conversations, try to come up with questions that will lead you to asks that you can make. So I can say like, dude, how's work? Are you still at the same company? If you say that you changed jobs, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about your new job. I'm going to ask you where you live. And then I'll be like, hey, dude, not trying to be salesy, but if your new job is 30 minutes away from your house and you want to look at houses like closer to work, let me know. I'm happy to help. I want to ask them questions that will get me in the position of making a hard ask that fits into the conversation, versus just saying like, hey, by the way, I want you to refer me to some people that you know. Like for me, that's not my preferred ask, because it's not super tangible.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, you said something earlier of, kind of focusing on one platform, but then like at what point?
Until you get good at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So at what point do you start carrying over, because I look at this like, yeah, I mean, I might have like, for me, as far as entertainment, like I like Twitter, but I get zero business off of Twitter.
Yeah.
So that's just a platform I prefer to go check out news.
Now, if you were running for politics,
say,
Twitter would be the number one place for you to be business-wise.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like it because it is freaking business and politics, right?
Yes.
So, but I'm not leveraging it for business, but then it's like, I look at this it's not about me being where I like to be. It's about being where my clients and potential clients are at.
I joke that it's just like the Little Mermaid, the cutest Disney princess out there said it best. I want to be where the people are. Okay. Wherever your people are is the social media site that you need to be on. And, if you're not super into social media, that's okay. But just keep in mind, like if one of your marketing goals is to stay top of mind, social media is free and it keeps you top of mind. So I always like to remind people of that.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I mentally frame it is like, I've got my business CRM, which I'm calling, texting, emailing, right? But then I got my social CRMs. So I look at all of these as just social CRMs, right? It's just build up my sphere of influence, but instead of calling, texting, email, I'm creating content, posting content and engaging with them on that content and on their content, of course, right?
Yeah. And I mean, literally you can use your CRM to set a task that, the day after closing or the day you get a lead in, you're going to add that person on social media, because like you get a lead, if they're in your area, you can probably type them in. You might find really quickly that you have friends in common with that person where, I don't know, like you let's say you're buying a lake house in Grand Haven where you grew up. I get you as a lead on Zillow or on any random website, and you don't know me. Like there's no reason for you to work with me and stop the shopping process. But I add you on Facebook and I see we have 3 friends in common. I can now call those 3 people and say like, hey, super random, but I think one of your friends, one of our mutual connections, is shopping for a lender and I'd love to be their choice. Is there any way that you can find a reason to reach out to them and subtly mention that I'm awesome? Yeah. That can be a little bit weird, but how bad do you want the deal? Like, would it be worth it to get that $10,000 commission? But secondly, you could set a task to just say, hey, 6 months after closing, I want to reach out to Josh on Facebook to check in. Same as setting a task to make a phone call. Use your CRM to set the tasks that will make you more successful on social.
Now, is there anything wrong with, from your experience of, let's just say I optimize this stuff for Facebook, but then I take that and repurpose that content on Instagram, then on TikTok, then on these other platforms. I know it may not be ideal because each one works a different way, but then that way it's like, then I can be on all these platforms, but still just focusing on, you know, the juggernaut platform where most of my clients are at.
I think whenever you post something, whenever you post content on one place that's really, really good and that does well, I think you should definitely post a version of that on the other ones, right? Now it's not always possible, right? Like you can't take a Facebook status and turn it into a TikTok video. But you can take a video and turn it into something for almost every social platform. What I don't like is using software that auto posts everything. So like you post everything to Facebook and then it auto shares it to like Instagram and Twitter. I don't love that because the algorithm sees that and sees that you're not posting original content, and it kind of dings you a little bit. So it ends up hurting your engagement in the future. And that's why I don't love it for that perspective. But what I do like is using like Facebook or Instagram Business Manager and scheduling posts out. That's totally fine.
Yep. Yeah, I got asked that question the other day. Somebody asked me, they're like, hey, I've been using Metricool and Auto Poster. And they're like, I think, man, I'm getting lesser engagement. You know,
I mean, the rule, as long as I've been in the game, has been anything that makes social media less social and more businessy hurts in the long run.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame because those auto posters are nice, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they say like marketers ruin everything, right? Like marketers ruin TV. Now it's all commercials, and that's why everyone uses streaming now. And now marketers are going to ruin streaming by changing the way it's done, and then we're going to go to something else.
Yeah. But then, you know, because I use some auto posters too, you know, and yeah, maybe it's lesser engagement, but because it ensures the frequency, you know, to me, it's, you know, like, there's kind of that, is it worth it?
There's a trade-off,
you know? So
if it's the only way you're going to do it, then it's definitely the way to go.
Yeah. And then, you know, the question that I'll get asked sometimes is like, how much is too much? You know, because I mean, and I don't know, with social, like with social media, and now that we're just in this attention economy, because it's not like we're competing against other realtors, we're competing against all these other brands, influencers, you know, so what is too much?
It depends on your audience. So if you are a 23-year-old and everyone on your audience is creating content, everyone in your audience is creating content, you need to post more to stay ahead of that, right? To float. If you're my mom, most of my mom's friends are consuming content, but they're not creating content. So when my mom on rare occasion does put something out there, she gets like crazy engagement because her friends are all waiting for content to be created. So it really depends on the network that you're in. You know, sometimes you can't post too much as long as it's unique content. And as long as it looks slightly different, right? Like your total feed, if you look on your news feed, most people don't ever click on their own news feed, right? What does it look like? Is it one-dimensional? Is it all real estate? Is it all family? Is it all your dog? You need to make sure that it looks presentable and reflects what you want people to see. Like when people go to mine, I want them to quickly see that I'm really good at real estate marketing, that I love to travel with my family, and that I love great food and wine and pickleball. That's what I need my Instagram to say about me.
Yeah. I mean, it's who you are as a person.
Exactly.
You know? Yep. No, I love it, dude. So then, all right. So kind of, well, any last things, like top tips or that people should be aware of, whether it's things to do or not do on the social media front before I kind of pivot?
Yeah. So I'll give you two. The first one is the number one thing that I would pay attention to on social media, and you could even use LinkedIn for this one, is job changes. So in this market, something like 30% of closings are happening because of job changes and people moving for work. These people do not care at all about the interest rate. They have to move. Physicians and medical professionals especially, right? Like they're transferred and they have to move for a fellowship, for whatever. So if you simply use LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram to look to see when people got a new job, and LinkedIn will actually update you once a week with all of the people in your network that move jobs. Use that as information, as a reason to reach out. That's one of the least utilized features of social media, and it's the best way in this market for an agent to get business. Second one, it's a general tip, but it's been true for a really long time. Whatever the newest feature that a social media site releases, or whatever the newest social site out there is, use it heavily at the beginning, because there's always an algorithm boost. So like Instagram just released this new app called Threads. It came out like, I don't know, this week, and it has 30, 40 million downloads already. I can guarantee that Instagram is going to give extra credit, extra algorithm juice, extra views to everybody that creates content on it initially so that it doesn't fail. I think they just want to compete with Twitter. They want to stick it to Elon Musk a little bit. So if you download this, use it for some business, use it for some personal, a lot in the next couple of weeks, your results are going to be 10x than they will be in a year once everyone's on it. Instagram Reels was the same thing. Instagram released Reels to compete with TikTok. At the very beginning, almost every reel posted was getting thousands and thousands of views, and people were getting serious leads. Now, Instagram has said, you know what? We're not winning at the video game. We're going to give that back to TikTok, and they've deprioritized Reels from photos. So now your photos are doing better than your Reels are. So unless they're like super viral, right? So whatever the newest thing is, give it a try and go hard at the beginning.
Now, what type of, like analytics, like when it comes to, how frequently, like what are some of the things people should pay attention to? Because like you just said, I mean, because it's not even an algorithm, it's algorithms within each platforms, and these can change. I just listened to the CEO of Instagram come out recently talking about they overplayed their hand on Reels, like you just said, and now they want to create it where it's more well-balanced. But then they're like, okay, well, here's what we're optimizing for stories. Here's what we're optimizing for, carousels, and that shit's changing all the time. So if we don't adapt our strategy, but if we're not paying attention to the analytics, and by that, I just mean engagement, whatever, we may not shift at those right times before it's too late, before we realize, oh shit, our business is taking a hit.
So a couple things with that. So number one, on Instagram, you really need to have either a creator profile or a professional profile in order to get the most out of the analytics and to see all the data. So the good news is if you already have a personal page, you can just click convert to creator or professional. And they're very similar, but creator has a couple more tools. It's a good option for now. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. In the future, they might say, hey, everyone has to pay to have these certain features, or in the future, it might hurt you in the algorithm to be a professional, but it might help you to be a creator. You never know what they're going to do. Facebook did that a couple of years ago. In terms of analyzing the analytics, for most small businesses, you can waste more time looking at the analytics than you can gain. So what I want people to do is to schedule a limited amount of time, call it 15 minutes a week, to look at the analytics on the last 5 or 6 posts you've done, look to see which one did the best, and then make something similar to that in the same format. I think that's the easiest thing you can do where you're not going to get super bogged down. If you post something 3 weeks in a row and it doesn't do well 3 weeks in a row, scrap it and try something new.
So then have you found, because man, it's so, every market's different, because everybody's ideal clients are different, and people, but are there best times that you found, like, calls I get asked all the time, is like, hey, what are the best days and times for me to do my follow-up calls? Okay, well, we kind of know that a little bit, right?
So in terms of posting, it depends on the age and the lifestyle of the people that you're posting for. But like, I've noticed that like most content is created between Friday and Saturday night. And then most people that are on social media during the middle of the week. And so it's one of those weird things where there's a mismatch. So it's really important to be varied, right? Like if you're only ever posting at like Tuesdays at 10 a.m. when you're working, but your other clients are at work, then it's hard to get seen by a variety. So I would say just vary it, right? Like post 2 or 3 things a week around like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, so that people can kind of see it when they're getting ready for work, when they're getting settled in, whatever. And then post some stuff at like 11:30 in the morning, because that's going to really reach the people taking their lunch break. Like your normal clients who have jobs, who can afford to buy houses, they're working. So if you post it like 11:30, they can see that when they're dicking around on their phone on their lunch break. And then it's tougher at night because everyone's night schedule depends on where they are in life. Like when I get home from work, I am like, I don't go on social media for 4 hours. I am on a hardcore little kid duty, and they dominate my time until 8:30 when their little heads hit the pillow. And then I literally veg out on the couch on social media or watching garbage TV for half an hour. I'm not doing Love Island like my wife because it's just too garbagey for me, but like I have my own shows. So, for that crowd, posting at like 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. might be really good to reach them. when they go into veg out mode, but for someone else, it might be right after work.
Yeah.
When they go to the gym, right?
Yeah. Now, are you with your clients doing much with YouTube right now?
I think YouTube's fantastic. I don't do a ton with it personally. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We're making 4 to 5 videos a month. Most of them are like repurposed videos. So if we do like a long form content, we'll split it up into like 4 or 5 different YouTube videos. We use it more for search engine optimization rather than for getting leads directly off of the platform. But I think one of the best ways I've seen realtors use it that we coach is shooting community videos with keywords around moving to XYZ city.
Yeah.
So moving to Scottsdale, moving to XYZ suburbs, schools in XYZ place. One of the #1 search keywords that has intent that's likely to get you a lead is moving to. And so if you create content around that, a lot of content, you can do well. But again, YouTube is one of those that I don't always advise agents on, because you have to really do it and stick with it for so long. And most people just aren't going to do that. But it can be a great long-term strategy. There's actually a realtor named Ken Pozek out of Orlando, Florida. The guy has done like something like 500 transactions a year off of YouTube for the past couple of years. He's like Mickey Mouse's realtor. He does everyone moving to Disney. Fascinating guy. And he started YouTube probably 4 or 5 years ago and really stuck with it. And his videos are truly a resource for anyone in the Orlando area.
Yep. Awesome, dude. All right, man. So, you mentioned earlier that you've done what, like 3,600 realtor meetings, so, over this decade. I mean, this is your world. All you're doing all day long is, coaching and training realtors on how to go out there and market themselves and get more business. And, and so I know we talked a lot about social today, but whether it be social, whether it be, offline, like what are some of the, top questions that you get, top tactics, strategies that you're helping your clients with? I mean, working with so many different real estate professionals in so many different markets.
Yeah, I'll give you an easy one. And this is probably like the one that works every single time in any market. And the idea is every day, find 3 properties that hit the MLS, right? Like when you and I talked before, we both agreed that studying the MLS every day is critical. Like it's a non-negotiable at your brokerage. It's a non-negotiable where I am too. So every day though, pick 3 properties and try to pick them in like an average price point, right? Like if the average price in your market's 500, go between 350 and 750, be in the middle. Pick 3 properties a day and choose 3 clients or leads from your database a day to send those properties to. And here's how it goes. You choose the property A, you say to a client, hey, I know you're not looking for a house right now, but this just listed in your neighborhood. Just wanted to make sure you see it. Number 1, you're staying top of mind. Number 2, the most likely buyer for that property is a friend or family member of someone that already lives in the area. Number 3, you're keeping your current client updated on property values near them, and you're sending them that information before they find out about it. I love being the person that gives people information for the first time. Like when I drive, I want my client to know that a home listed in their neighborhood before they drive home from work that day and see the sign, and then immediately start texting all of their neighbors about it, right? Like I want, when that text message goes out, I want that to be from my clients to their friends saying, dude, my realtor Matt just sent me a message that the Joneses listed their house. I can't believe they listed for 800. Nothing's ever sold that high. People then, if they're thinking about selling, they're going to ask for my information. This works for me incredibly well. Other ways to do it though. Some realtors keep like a dream book, which is like an idea of like what their client's dream house was from when they were looking the first time. There's a lot of realtors right now who have sold clients' homes that they don't love, right? You sell clients' houses that work for them based on the competitiveness of the market. So you choose a property off the MLS today and you message it to a past client and you say, hey, I know you're not looking for a house right now, but this is exactly what you were looking for 2 years ago. Just thought I'd send it over to you. You would be shocked at how many people unsolicited will go and tour a house with you if it's perfect, even if they're not looking. My wife and I bought our last house off of a text from our agent that said, hey, I know you guys were really looking for an ultra modern house, but there's none for sale. This one just listed. Let's go look at it after work. My realtor took charge on it and we bought the house, right? Like, and we bid like way over asking on it because it was the perfect house. But that deal would have never happened had the realtor not told me that I need to buy the house. Like a client doesn't mind being led a little bit. The other options for it are you find a property and you send it to someone because you know that they're already looking in the neighborhood. Like this works for your buyers that are already like pre-approved and good to go. This works if you find out that your clients have relatives that want to move to the area, you can put them on something like that for them. Or it could just be like a really cool property. Like it could be, a property that lists right next to the company that your friend works at. Like, hey, I know you're not looking, but this property listed 2 blocks away from your work. Not sure if you have any friends who are looking to move closer to work. There's so many reasons it works. But again, if you're sending out 3 per day to 3 different people, that's 9 a day. 9 a day, that's 45 a week. That's huge. You send out 45 like hard sells a week to people, something is going to come of it. So I call it the 3x3 strategy. And everyone I've done it with so far has had some success with it. And the other good part is, even if you're new and you don't have your own listings, it doesn't matter. You're using the MLS, which you pay for access to, as your ammunition to reach out to people.
What do you see as, because man, I mean, you deal with so many, realtors, team leaders, brokerage owners.
Yeah.
What do you see is, the top, it could be 1, 2, 3, whatever reasons that they either fail, I mean, the failure rate's astronomical.
I know, I can tell you exactly why realtors fail. It's an easy one.
Okay.
Realtors fail for the same reason that they chose to get into the business in the first place. When I ask people, hey, what brought you into real estate? They say, I wanted more independence. I wanted more flexibility and freedom. Like there's this idea that everyone else out there has a job and that realtors can do whatever they want all the time. And although there is some flexibility in real estate, what isn't flexible is what's in your calendar, like your time block. If you're flexible in your time block and you push things back and you push things around and you don't hold the activities in your calendar as a priority to yourself, you're going to fail. Or you could get really lucky and succeed, but that's not predictable.
Yeah.
If you don't have a time block and you don't have set real estate related, prospecting related activities in your calendar, it's going to be really, really hard to succeed in this market. And I'll tell you what, between 2014 and 2018, I'll call those the golden years, right? Like anyone with a good personality and a good database could get some deals together, right? The market wasn't competitive and there were a ton of houses on the market. Anyone could do well. Now you have to have a lot of real estate related activities in your calendar to get to base camp.
Now, no, I love everything. I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. That's powerful stuff. So, because you live in both worlds, helping coach realtors, but then also in the mortgage, industry. I mean, everybody's always, whether it be consumers that we're dealing with, but then realtors are always wondering too, like, and part of me wonders like, hey, is this going to be the new norm? Meaning like, I mean, you're watching the middle class get wiped out, right? Like, I mean, the gap is getting bigger between the haves and the have-nots. You got with deglobalization and almost every country out there having a very unhealthy demography. So we're going from rapid population growth to now rapid population decline on a global scale. I'm like, man, all of those things might create a climate for the rest of our lives where we're in a higher interest rate environment.
Well, I mean, the number one good thing is, and I just did a podcast interview with an 83-year-old agent, and she went through the business in the 80s where we were at 12 to 18% adjustable rate mortgages, and people that wanted houses still got houses. So that's the good news. The bad news, or the crazy part of it, is that you're totally right. Like the entire international market is changing and the middle class is shrinking. So I think on the positive side for realtors, those buyers you have that are serious are super serious, super determined, and they will get houses. I think it's going to be harder to convince people to get off the fence and get into real estate the first time around, right? Like it's a little bit contagious. So I would really make sure to insert marketing activities to be around the close personal friends of your buyers who are successful, who don't own a home yet, right? So like if I'm a new realtor and I just closed on 3 deals with first-time home buyers, I'm going to throw them each a housewarming party and tell them to invite their 10 favorite people. Because then their 10 people are saying like, well, Johnny bought a house and I have the same income as Johnny. I could do it too. You got to get that hope out. Let's get hope out of Pandora's box. Let's get it out into the world. That is going to be how this real estate market moves on. We've learned that, like, we all thought 4 years ago, especially in Arizona, right? Like, technology is going to kill the industry. That's going to be the problem. But now we're saying, oh, it's not technology that's the problem. All those companies are going bust. It's the fear. It's the market. It's money. If we can get rid of that fear and put a little hope out there, I think we can get another good, 10 years out of this until the next cycle comes around, right? Like, the world, people are having less babies. Eventually, the inventory problem will adjust itself a little bit, or there's going to be some big developments of tiny houses to get some first-time home buyers into an easier first step. I could see that happening in certain markets where there's room, but we need to make it work in this current market before that happens.
Yeah, it's interesting, because Phoenix is always like the sandbox for prop tech, and so, cool part about that is we get to, see a lot of this stuff, years before it hits, the mainstream. But man, they're already 3D printing crazy amounts of homes out here. It's just 3D huge robot machines out there. And they're just, obviously, like you mentioned, they're tinier track style, but affordable homes, and it might be years before we see some of this affordability be fixed, but, this too shall pass, right?
Well, and I think you have to be open to new ideas, right? Like we talk about that with social media, embrace the new ideas that are happening in your market, because they all might not stick, but one of them will likely stick, and it'll be good to be poised to at least understand them with an open mind.
Yeah. So, I know we talked a lot about marketing and whatnot. And a big part of when it comes to marketing now is all this AI, and AI is not something new, but it's, new with ChatGPT. I think it's gotten a lot more people's radars. Are you leveraging any of these, AI tools like ChatGPT or I mean, there's a bazillion of them now.
So I'm using ChatGPT a lot for like simple tasks to save myself time. Like today, one of my loan officers said, "Hey, I just got licensed in Florida. Can you send an email to my entire database letting them know?" So my brain was a little fried. I'd already done a podcast this morning. So I went into ChatGPT. I said, "Hi, I'm a 45-year-old female mortgage lender currently in Michigan. Most of my business comes from my past clients. I'd like you to write me an email geared towards my past clients, letting them know that I now am licensed to lend mortgage money in the state of Florida." And then I said, "Make it funny." Within 1 second, it had written a 4-paragraph email that was pretty funny and heartfelt in the tone and voice of a 45-year-old woman in Michigan. I then said, "Cut it in half." And it took the same message, but made it shorter and more compact. And then I looked at it. I added like a little bit of more of a human element to make it sound more like her, because I know her. I sent it to her and I said, "You good?" She said, "That's awesome." That took 3 minutes, like the whole exchange from start to finish. So I think AI is really good to use for things like that, to like give yourself an enhancement and make you faster. It can be great to use for statistics, but the big thing to realize is like real estate changes quickly and every market's different. And most of ChatGPT is only using information from 2021 or before. So if you need it to do something with current data, you have to give it the current data. And I think that's where a lot of realtors get into it and say like, "Oh, this data is not useful." You have to give it the information to make it useful, but it does learn really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point. I mean, like I did one just as a test. I went on there. I was like, write a YouTube script for top 10 reasons to move to Phoenix, Arizona. And I mean, it had some great, intel in there, but one of them was talking about the affordability and gave an average home selling price point from like 2016.
So that was like
it was like less than
off.
half of, it was like more than half of what current price, so yeah, you kind of got to know what you're doing and understand your market. But yeah, I'm utilizing a lot of the same ways, man, helping write emails, objection handlers that I'm kind of stuck on, or thinking of more creative ways of handling this objection, cleaning up ad copy that I've already ran, so I can split test 3 or 4 different variations of this.
And I've used it as an Excel replacement recently, like in terms of like formulas and stuff. Like if I don't know the formula in Excel for something, I'll just plug my entire, 100 rows of data in and then tell ChatGPT what I want it to perform. Like if I want the average, or if I want it to compare data points or find me some useful information, I'll use it for that. And it's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. So then let's talk a little bit about your job is to go out there and pour value into realtors, help realtors create success in hopes that they see it valuable and they use your guys' mortgage company. So, your mortgage company, Treadstone Mortgage, Where are you guys? You guys
Yeah.
are you on 50
So
states?
that's a great question. In Michigan and Minnesota, we are Treadstone Mortgage, and then all across the country, we're known as Neighborhood Loans. So we have offices in Arizona, we have offices in Texas. We're most places other than like New York.
Okay, perfect. So then anybody that's, because I mean, dude, we're all, you know, either realtors, team leaders, or broker owners listen to this podcast. So all kind of your ideal client as well. You know,
yeah,
so
if anyone out there is listening and they want to get in touch with me and they want to do a marketing meeting, I'm not going to make you send like 3 deals to one of our lenders, but I would love to introduce you if we have someone in your market. So you can reach out to me via Instagram, Matt Muscat 88, or find me online. If you can't Google me and find me, I've been a terrible marketer and you shouldn't bother reaching out. But yeah, reach out. We can have a marketing meeting and I'll try to connect you with someone if I have someone in your market.
and with your book, I'm assuming that is also geared towards like
Yeah,
realtors would get a great benefit out of reading that book.
So the book is 100% geared towards real estate agents. Now it works for realtors who want to partner with their lender and kind of do some of these tactics together. And it also works for insurance agents because it's very, very similar, but it's called TAG, the Tangible Action Guide. Every single chapter is something that you could do today to generate a lead or a deal. It's written to the attention span of a salesperson because I know we get distracted easily, right? Like you'll finish 5 pages of a chapter on Facebook and then all of a sudden you'll have a client call you that wants to see a house. So it's written knowing how your career works.
Yep. Awesome. And then, you got a podcast, Epic Podcast.
The Neighborhood
so we
Realtor.
got introduced. Yeah.
Yeah. Neighborhood Realtor, your episode will be up soon. But yeah, on the podcast, like my goal is to interview people from different markets across the United States and Canada, actually. So the idea is that like no one wants to learn from the person in their own backyard because you feel like you're copying them. They're going to notice, they're going to call you out. But real estate's real estate. Like anywhere in the country, like most of us are doing the same kinds of things, but everyone focuses on something else. So we've done an episode with a guy who has done 5,000 open houses and he shares his secrets. Done an episode with someone who went from being homeless to selling $50 million in luxury real estate. And she explains how her journey was when she started with nothing. There's something for everybody. We've talked to people who leverage being a mom with 3 little kids who are busy into sales by networking with other parents. So there's something for everyone. And I really just want to get across those one-off stories so that listeners can really identify with someone and relate to them and think, I could do it that way.
Yeah. Love it, man. So last question for you. So if Matt today could go down and sit on a park bench with, you know, your younger version of yourself when you first started this journey, you know, 10 years ago or so, I guess 13 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
But knowing everything you know now, give yourself a couple pieces of advice that you feel would have been really powerful to know. What would those couple pieces of advice look like?
Meet more people. Number one thing would be meet more people, because at the end of the day, I think sometimes it's too easy to not take a meeting because you don't know what the value is going to be and you don't know if it's going to be a great use of your time or not. But what I found is that some of the people that I've met that I thought this is going to be, I have no idea what we're going to talk about, this could be a waste of my time, have led to crazy exponential results. And at the same time, the ones that didn't lead to anything, I might have learned something, I might have had a great time. And worst case scenario, it was half an hour. Taking more chances and growing my database is always a win. And anything that I can do to, or anyone you add to your database in the past has exponential results in the future. It's all about customer lifetime value. They teach it in school, but they don't really talk about it a lot in real estate. In fact, it's the topic of one of the continuing eds that I teach. Have a big mindset, have a pie is big mindset, and you can do really well. Also, other realtors are not your competition. For me, other lenders are not my competition. They are potential future recruits. They are potential people to learn from. They are potential referral partners. And I think agents and lenders need to realize that like the pie is big. Even though the market's crazy right now and competitive, the pie is big, and you need to go into every day with a mindset of that.
Yeah, love it. Such powerful stuff, Matt. And I truly appreciate you taking time. I'm busy to be here, man. This has been amazing, brother.
Hey, this is awesome, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Those watching and listening, as always, truly appreciate all of your support. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and we'll see you next time. Peace.